absolutely crucial that we get behind this campaign 100%. So next, we'll hear from the strategist behind this campaign, the leader and founder of the Uhuru movement, which is a collection of over 50 institutions fighting for self-determination, Black power, and African liberation. The chairman carried a defeated Black revolution of the 60s into this era, dedicating his entire life towards seeing Black power and African liberation into worldwide fruition. Everyone, please stand to their feet for our chairman, Omali Yeshitela.
Let's raise the red, black, and green every day.
Every day?
Yeah, let's raise the first occasion we raised that flag, the reason we started taking it down is because the police stole it. On the very first night that flag went up, that 15 by 25 foot flag went up on that 50-fold flagpole. It was stolen. And so we started taking it down. We'd rather leave it up, but I think we should go ahead and put it up, especially if it's not raining, because if it's going to rain, it's going to be difficult because that's a big flag to try to, to take down and then have it dry out someplace. So if that doesn't seem likely, I think we should put it up every day. And so I want to thank everybody, and I want to say that my presentation is affected by this incredible presentation that Comrade Akilé just made. Much of what I will talk about has been talked about by Comrade Akilé. And I do want to say some things, though, because the election is bigger than St. Petersburg. This election is bigger than St. Petersburg. The significance of what we're talking about is much bigger than St. Petersburg. The victory here is a victory for Africans everywhere. Yes. The reality is that we talk about a rigged election and all the things that they do to us in St. Petersburg, Florida. We engaged in serious struggle in St. Louis, for example. In St. Louis, they had a stealth election too, similar to what they just did now, so that the election is not on the radar. Most people don't even know it's happening. We knock on the doors and say, you're going to vote, and they say, when? What? What's up? Right? They have no idea that an election was even on the agenda. They did that to us in St. Louis. In this instance, the Democratic Party even played a role in it. And not just the Democrats, I mean the whole political establishment. In this instance, they asked people to vote to reduce the number of wards. In St. Louis, you have wards as opposed to districts that we talk about here. As opposed to what we call city council persons, they're alderpersons, so that one votes for a particular alderperson for a particular ward. And so there are 28 right now. And what they did is held a stealth election in St. Louis that most of the Africans didn't even know was happening. There was no campaign done in the African communities, even among Democrats to whom Africans are so loyal. And so this election happened, and they cut in half the number of wards. And they did this, of course, is because St. Louis is a majority African city. But if they can cut the wards in half, instead of 28, now they have 14. And they do this, they say, because they want to do it because of efficiency, etc. So they can more efficiently exploit the community without resistance. Yep. And what this means is that now, if you want to run for office in St. Louis, you've got twice the amount of territory that has to be covered, which means you need at least twice the amount of money in order to run, which means that you're going to have to be dependent more on the big corporations and white power in order to try and represent your people. And so similarly, something like that happened here. This whole rigged election setup that they have in St. Petersburg is designed to do the same thing. In St. Louis, gentrification, pushing out the African community. St. Louis now, as I mentioned, is a majority African city. They intend to make St. Louis majority white. And so Africans are being pushed out of the city. Do the same thing they did here. So if people are on welfare or on Section 8, you can't get Section 8 where you live. You got to go someplace else. You got to move into other areas to get Section 8. This is part of the process of pushing African people out. in order to whitenize the city, in order to maximize this whole gentrification process. Developers are there buying up huge tracts of property, and then of course that makes the cost of housing go up. And it means that the taxes on the people's property go up. That means that African people are less likely to have enough money to pay their taxes, and especially old African women whose husbands have died some time ago. It's their responsibility, living on fixed income, to try to keep pay their taxes. And then, of course, then you have the code enforcement. And these old women can't fix up the houses and what have you, so you can't meet the requirements for code enforcement, which means the city puts liens on the houses, right? Which means the city then takes the property, and then the property goes to the highest bidder, etc. Here we see what they're doing to the housing project. It is something, a war that's being made against us everywhere. This election is not just St. Petersburg. This election is critical everywhere. And it means also the question of reparations. Here, people talk reparations talk all the time, but actual struggle to materialize the demand for reparations being made right here. This first time that reparations has been on the ballot was done in St. Petersburg, Florida, 2017.
Yes.
It was done right here. And people like reparations is mysterious. What does it look like? Who's going to get it? And this kind of stuff. I'll tell you who's going to get it. The victims, the people who've been stolen from are going to get it. Yes. And this campaign brings the people into the process to take back what actually belongs to us. Yes. And that's why this was such an extraordinary campaign. The first round, going to this point, was such an extraordinary campaign. And we have to really find this victory to be a remarkable victory. Yes. Because it went up against the whole status quo. Yes. The fact is, it was a stealth election. The fact is that the ruling class media made it a point not to let the people know that this election in general was even happening. Yeah. And at the points where they mentioned the elections, they did it in a fashion that was designed to kind of divert the people's attention away from what the fundamental questions and issues are that we're confronted with. Mm-hmm. For example, the St. Petersburg Times ran a huge article on somebody who hasn't raised any money. Yeah. Somebody who came out of some attack on lesbians and gays and things like that, and that's the critical question. Yeah. That's the critical question. This is the article that St. Petersburg Times ran about somebody who's supposed to be running for this same district that we're in. Mm-hmm. So that's one statement that they've made. Yes. Then, not only did the St. Petersburg Times do this, but then you see the other media, like Channel 8, comes up and make that the fundamental question. Here we are talking about reparations. One would think that the bourgeoisie itself would want to have this discussion, if only to say hell no to reparations. Right. If only to do that, one would think they would say hell no to reparations. Yeah. But they need that discussion, one would think. Yeah. If we say make the South Side black again, seems to me that's a controversial statement. Yes. But they don't want to deal with that controversial statement because it cuts to the quick. Yes. Because it deals with the fundamental contradictions that we're confronted with. So let's talk about being opposed to gays and homosexuals coming from the black community, right? Yeah. Like we don't have cousins who are homosexuals, like we don't have relatives and sisters and brothers and neighbors who are homosexuals. Like somehow black people who've been oppressed all of our existence now, we find it in our interest to go out and oppress homosexuals. So we can have slumlords in our communities, developers in our communities ripping us off every day, and we're supposed to be against homosexuals. Or if you're not, you're supposed to think that's the critical issue that we're dealing with. Yes. This is what they want to talk about. They didn't make a single statement about any of the issues. And then, even though they don't do that, what they did do was they endorsed their candidates. Yeah. So they're not saying anything about the campaigns. They just got in every newspaper, on the editorial page, a picture and a statement of their endorsements. Yeah. They don't say why, they don't say what they stand for, just this is who we endorse. Yeah. So the assumption is that they have a monopoly on the ability to speak to the people. Yes. They have a monopoly on communicating to the people so they don't have to say anything, but just put their pictures up and vote for these people here. Yeah. Wow. They are part of the system that we are running against. So I wanted to say, I think it's really important for us to understand that, and we beat them. Yes. Nevertheless, We knocked on the doors. The people, they wouldn't put it in their newspaper, so we knocked on their door and talked to them personally. We knocked thousands of doors. We called them up on the phone and said, hey, this is what's going on. You beat them. We are not even supposed to be here.
Yes.
They were going to shut us out. Then we wrote our own newspaper. Put our own newspaper and put out more than 17,000 of our own newspaper explaining what these things are to the people in this community. We jumped on, we were not supposed to be here. And the system was not set up for us to be here. I want to just say a few things about this because even some people who are our friends, in theory, white people, are unsettled by the demands that we make for black people having power over our own lives. They're unsettled by that. They say they like us already, but couldn't you broaden your message? Do you just have to say to black people that you want reparations? Couldn't you just say something else, right? Can the white people have reparations too, etc.? I mean, they even our so-called friends are made unsettled by the struggle of black people for freedom on our own terms. Because if it's not on your own terms, it ain't freedom.
Right.
I don't care what you say.
Right.
Either you're free or you're not free. And if it's not on your terms, you ain't free. And some people got problems with us saying we want to be free on our own terms. Some people have problems because we say we're just like every other group of human beings on the planet Earth. We want to be free on our own terms. We want to have dignity as a people. We want to have a community of integrity, and you can't do that if you have to kowtow and bow down and scrape to the demands of somebody else. So we say that people who really love us, then you have to unite with our aspirations to be a free people.
Yes.
Because the reason we are voting here or engaged in this process is because Africans came here as kidnapped people. It's not like some time ago we had a vote in Angola and said, let's move to St. Petersburg, Florida. We got kidnapped. And we were dispersed all around the world, and we've been fighting for our freedom since then. We've been fighting to be free. We fight in St. Petersburg, and we do fight in Angola, Nigeria, and Jamaica, and Haiti. And throughout this country, we want to be a free people. That's what it's about. That's why we engage in electoral politics, not just to get a Negro a job. If you want a job, do like everybody else, go pee in the bottle. You understand? And do all the other stuff that they impose on us. But it's not just about a job. It's about uplifting the masses of our people, in particular the working people who create all the value. That's what it's about. That's what this campaign is about. That's what this struggle is about. It's about winning freedom. Yes. But the proud fact is that we have always fought for freedom. And this is something that we must remember as a people. We have always fought for freedom. We have never laid down and accepted oppression. We never accepted slavery. We never accepted colonialism. That's why we're here today, 500 years later, talking about being free. That's what we're about. And so, like the group that enslaved us put in place a system to protect this system. They put in place a system to transfer power, to move power in a way that this doesn't disrupt anything but keep the status quo in place. And the status quo that I'm talking about is a capitalist status quo. It is capitalism. I mean, I know Bernie Sanders is supposed to be some kind of socialist, and then there are a couple of other people supposed to be some kind of socialists who are in the Congress right now. And so I'm glad they're talking about socialism because it opens the door for us to have a real discussion about what socialism is. And because the campaign that we just did in 2017 has been contributed to the ability of people who are running for office now, for president, to say reparations, right? And just on June 19th, the U.S. Congress had some kind of subcommittee hearing on reparations for black people, right? It didn't just drop out of the sky like that. It is a system now trying to get in front of these questions that are critical because the system itself is in trouble. And you see it in trouble. First of all, the clearest evidence of the trouble of the system is the election of Donald Trump as U.S. president. Yeah. That's a troubled system. That's a troubled system. Think about this. who has become the Prime Minister of England. And he is trying to facilitate England leaving the so-called European Union. The European Union was supposed to come together and create the largest economy in the world. That was the project of all these white people now part of one union. But the problem that they got is all of the power, all of the money, all of the influence that they have rests upon a pedestal of slavery and colonialism. And the enslaved and colonized people around the world are struggling to take back their resources from Afghanistan to Syria to Libya and every place else, and even Southside St. Petersburg. And it makes it hard for them to get along together now because the pie is shrinking. The parasite has less that it can rely on for its own survival, and so you see these different parasites, almost like every white man for himself on the international level. The system is in trouble. And so as the system is in trouble, you find different representatives of the system fighting in their own interests, and now they want to get in front of and co-opt your issue. Your issue is reparations. Your issue is socialism. We came from a socialist existence. Socialism simply means that the people who produce all the value that's necessary for people to live ought to be collectively owning all the value. Socialism simply means that you don't have a system where a handful of people who don't do any work at all own and control everything that is produced by people who do all the work. That's what socialism is. And that the greatest victim of stolen value on the planet Earth, black people, who have been enslaved, not only here, but the entire continent of Africa, 12 million square miles of territory, has been turned into a factory for the production of enslaved human beings who were enslaved on the continent of Africa and dispersed around the world to be slaves as well. Socialism, that's our issue. That's our question. And they know sooner or later the workers will begin to demand the overthrow of this capitalist enterprise that's responsible for the oppression and exploitation of everybody else. Anyway, right here in St. Petersburg, on my way here this morning, I pulled up to the store right across the street from the Uhuru house here. It's a store, it's an Arab-owned store in the heart of the African community where there are no African-owned stores. And sitting on the curb outside were African people just sitting there as a normal situation. But they were like destitute. And they were almost like nomads sitting there on the curb. And I was incensed by that. Because that's what this election is about. This election is about bringing back the dignity of our people. Putting in our hands the ability to produce life for ourselves. So that we're not reduced to people whose morale has been so broken down that we're beggars on the streets and things like that with blue wigs. Like you find on the corners here. That's what it's about. It's not just about some fanciful notion of what they would call freedom and democracy. Freedom and democracy represents itself in real concrete fashion. You can't be free if you can't feed yourself. If you can't clothe yourself. If you can't house yourself, it's an illusion if you walk around calling yourself free. The ones who feed, clothe, and house you, they control what you call your freedom. So in St. Petersburg, we're offended by this. We're offended by the fact that we live in a city where an African man, some years ago, gave the city government land for the purpose of being used for housing for our people, and for a school for our people, and for other things, institutions that were created here. The African man, Elder Jordan, gave this to the city for housing for black people. That's where Jordan Park, the housing project, comes from. And now, if you read the newspapers, I think it's today, I see that the guy who is from the housing authority in Africa has been fired. And there's a debate going on about whether he should be fired or not. And he's being fired not because of anything that happened to the African people who lived over there before they were being pushed out. He's been fired because somehow he has upset the city about monies that he used for himself. There's no question of what happened to the people.
Right.
And then there are opponents, African opponents to this guy, who want his job and want the influence that he had. They are fighting too. So you got this war going on between different sectors of the African petty bourgeoisie, middle class, not in the interest of our people.
Right.
The people who lived in Jordan Park, they disappeared.
Yeah.
Where the hell are they?
Yes.
And this is Elder Jordan who gave that property to the city for us, not for some high rises that they want to build at our expenses there.
Yes.
This is why we're involved in this election. That's what it's about. And nobody should be upset because we want to have power over our own lives. And so, when we were engaged in the struggle, we talked about the vote. I was a part of the struggle to win the vote for African people in the South. I was an organizer, voter registration and education project here in this city. I worked indirectly for a man named Vernon Jordan, who headed this project up. Vernon Jordan is a billionaire. His relative worked in Barack Hussein Obama's White House office. He, at one time, was the head of the Congress of Racial Equality. Or was it the Urban League? And so he headed this project for voter education and registration. I had 6 counties in the state of Florida that I organized in. Because Africans couldn't vote. They one put me in jail in Alachua County in Gainesville, Florida, for registering Africans to vote. And they tried to kill me. I can't even think of the name of the city. At one of these small towns, because they're trying to register Africans to vote. And so we did this. We did this as a part of the struggle to win freedom. Again, it was not to try to get somebody a job. It was the struggle to win freedom. Vernon Jordan got a job. He's the one who had the blue dress that Clinton, Monica Lewinsky, and Clinton were involved in. He got a job. And he, again, provided Obama his first audition with the big corporations and stuff like that. His relative, I don't remember if his aunt or niece or something like that, was in Obama's office. So here we are struggling. But that wasn't where the struggle started. Black people want to be free.
Yes.
In fact, we didn't win the right to vote by voting.
Right.
We won the right to vote through struggle on the streets. They said you can vote now because of struggles. But before we got to this place where they made this kind of concession, we had a Black Power movement that happened in this country. We saw the rise of the Black Panther Party that happened in this country. We saw the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and SNCC and the Black Panther Party and JOMO that happened in this country. And these were revolutionary movements. African people had moved toward revolution, had moved away from simply begging and pleading, will you please allow us to participate in the system, and turn our back on the system because it was clear the system was not going to solve our problem.
Right.
And then in 1965, the U.S. government passed what it called the Voting Rights Act. That's when you got the right to vote. But at the same time, what year did they kill Malcolm X? Somebody say 65. And then, of course, we saw them kill Martin Luther King. And they killed in 68. And they were killing revolutionaries all around this country. They jailed Panthers. They jailed me. I was in and out of prison so much. And so while the revolutionary movement had genuine revolutionary demands that it was trying to project, and the African masses believed in those demands and demonstrated those demands and fought for those demands and set cities on fire for those demands. They crushed the revolutionary movement, killed the revolution, then said, now you can vote. 65 passed the Voting Rights Act. But now you can vote who you got to vote for. Malcolm did. Members of the Black Panther Party did. The co-founder of the African People's Socialist Party killed. So they destroyed that. They destroyed our organizations, and then you can vote. Now the only thing you got to vote for is the Democratic Party. But the Democratic Party doesn't have a revolutionary program. Even King, with his Poor People's Campaign. King was not a revolutionary, but even that was too much for them. And so you don't hear Poor People's Campaign on anybody's program that's running for office. You don't hear the demand for black power coming out from anybody's campaign that's running for office,
Right.
except what you see in this movement.
Yes.
And I might say two other people I can point to who are in politics, and that is like Charles Barron, who formerly city council in New York City, now the state assembly, and his wife Inez, who's on the city council, and who's put reparations, got a reparations bill now in New York City, New York State. Okay? And Jesse Todd, of course, out of St. Louis.
Yes.
These are revolutionary demands and trying to work for the interests of the people, and they killed the revolution off. And then what they did was open up this electoral process, and now you can participate in the electoral process. And it's a Democratic Party control thing for most of the African people. That's how we participate in politics. And what it means is that a lot of people, there was a Russian, his name was Pavlov. He was a scientist, and he did these experiments and with a dog. You've heard of Pavlov's dog. And he concluded that there are conditioned and unconditioned responses that human beings have. And the unconditioned responses are those responses that are genetically, they're wired to us, like you have to eat. And so when food is available, there's a natural tendency to salivate. You salivate because that's a part of the digestive process. But what he determined was, you can get the dog, and then you can ring a bell. And if every time you ring a bell, there's food associated with it. The dog comes, the bell rings, and there's food is delivered, then the dog learns to salivate even when there is no food. The bell can make the dog salivate. And this is a conditioned response. So there's an unconditioned response that's natural. It is natural for all oppressed people to fight, to be able to be free. It is natural for people to want to feed and clothe ourselves. We got to eat. We got to have shelter. That's a natural conditioned response that people will fight for. But what has happened is, like Pavlov's dog, they have said you can only be free now if you go to the elections, if you participate in the electoral process. This is the way to be free. So they ring the bell, and then we rush to the electoral process. And after a period of time, of course, the majority of the dogs have discovered, hell, there ain't no food here, right? Or there's only food for a small group of us. So why the hell would I run every time the damn bell rings? And so you find Africans who said, the hell with the bell, right? I'm not doing this anymore, right? And so the electoral process has become a big disappointment for a lot of people. People don't vote. And so people are denouncing our community for not voting. But the fact is there's nothing to vote for most of the time, and they don't want us to vote. As much as they castigate us, and as much as they talk badly about us because we don't vote, they don't want us to vote. Because if they wanted us to vote, then you'd know that reparations was on the ballot. You'd know that there's a real socialism that's happening on 1245 18th Avenue South, that's emanating from here. You would know about the critical questions that we are confronted with, but they don't want you to vote, so they don't tell you that. And they keep the electoral process away from the vast majority of the people. But we beat them. Yep. And we went against their whole system. And so there's a counter trajectory. Some people are still going to the bell. And these are the people, more or less, who participate in the electoral process most of the time. And what we have a responsibility to do is awaken the vast majority of other people. That's where we are now. We have to have a social movement here. We have to have African people mobilized to be free. Because even if people won't come out just for an election, we gotta say you gotta come out to take back everything that's been stolen from you. You gotta come back to take back Jordan Park. You gotta come out to take back the land under the dome. You gotta come back to push the pigs out of the community who are violating us every day of our lives. You gotta come out to make sure that you don't contend every day with half-naked white men barefoot walking down the communities that used to, that's so disrespectful. We don't do that in our community. communities, etc. You got to come out to fight against that, against the gentrification, against the loss of your grandmother's house and stuff like that. You got to come out for that. And we have to build a movement on the ground that mobilize the masses of African people who, whether they are felons, whether they can vote, or whether they can't vote, they have to be a part of this movement. And what this movement has to do is help them to understand that this election is different in the sense that you can vote to keep your grandmama's house and take back the property that's been stolen from us, to push the pigs out of the community who violate us on a daily basis and humiliate us on a regular basis. This is what we have to do. That's what this campaign is going to be about. I want to say that what we've done with this election, and it's really important, is that we have disrupted this monopoly on the electoral process that is enjoyed by the African petty bourgeoisie, by sellout Negroes. We've disrupted this monopoly. They run for office and they say, I represent the black people. Yeah. And it looks like it's true because the black people elected them. Yeah. But the only reason the black people elected them because there was no contest. They didn't have to contend with real black people who said, this is what the issues are. Yeah. That's what Akilé did in this election, said, this is what the issues are. Are you for reparations? Yes. Are you for gentrification? Are you returning back the land that's been stolen from us? That's the question. Yeah. And so now they're in this situation where they have to answer these questions. This is what this involvement is all about. That's why it is significant. Yes. So we don't let them have the monopoly on this question. We don't let them pursue their own agenda without there being evidence of fight back. We don't let them, the Tampa Bay Times or any other media, say that we know the black people wanted this sellout. The black people wanted to destroy their own lives. They wanted to give up all of this stuff because, see, they voted for this sellout here. We don't want them to not have any option except white power and blackface. That's what this election helps us to do. Yes. So this is a form of struggle that we're involved in, the electoral process. And we have become extraordinarily good at this. We've gone up against different arms of the Democratic Party in our community that don't call themselves arms of the Democratic Party. Right. They call themselves labor unions. Yes. They call themselves the NAACP. They call themselves these other things, but they're arms of the establishment in our own communities, and we're fighting against the whole damn establishment. There's no way that we can win without fighting against it all. And we want it all. Yes. We're cautioned every day that you got to learn how to play the game. Yeah. You got to learn how not to say, yeah, we know it's true that we ought to get this stuff, but you can't say it. See, if you say it, then you can't win. Yeah. But if you win without saying it, you don't win. Yeah. You might win, but the people can't win. Right. You got to say what's necessary to mobilize the people in defense of their own interests. Because it wasn't the election that put the people in motion, it's the people in motion that gave the ability to participate in elections. Yes. Right. So the people have to be put in motion. The people are the critical forces here, just like Akilé just said. Electing Akilé is not going to be enough. Even when she goes into office, the masses of people are going to have to be there pushing these critical questions for her to be able to get anything done. Yes. So, I wanted to make those statements. And because the system in and of itself is there to protect the electoral process and protect the system. It's not there for anybody to win any freedom. Right. And that's why even people who are friends, who participate in the electoral process, can be made nervous, anxious by what it is that we say we're standing for, that we want black people to have power, we want black people to be free, etc. They want black people to be with them. Yeah. And that's not necessarily the same thing, right? But they equate freedom as being with white people, right? You can't be free unless you're with white people, right? And so our friends are going to have to learn new lessons about what freedom really means. Yeah. And the system corrupts people. And, you know, it corrupts your preachers. Yeah. Here are people who call themselves, you know, some kind of representative of God, you know, a representative of Yeshua who fought against the Roman colonizer in Rome. That's how he died, police violence. right? Fighting against Roman domination, kicking over the tables. I read about it, you know, in the temple or what have you. Yeah. And now these same preachers are wedded to the ruling class. They're wedded to whatever's downtown. Here are preachers who this is the highest representative of morality that's supposed to be in our community, who won't fight for the people who are oppressed and who are driven to this humiliating status of demoralization, beggars on the streets. They won't fight for them. They won't fight for those people who are fighting, trying to survive using the instruments in their hand. The only thing they've got, they've come to a conclusion a long time ago, elections not going to feed us, so how do I eat? Right. I got to eat. How do I eat? How do I feed my family? Yes. How do I get any kind of enjoyment in life? Yes. The election doesn't do it, and so they come up with their own methods of trying to do that. Yes. And sometimes those methods are disruptive and dangerous and what have you, but they are legitimate to the extent that they are trying to survive. And the preachers and the black elected officials are not speaking to that. Yes. They claim to represent the people. They're not saying a thing about that. They're not challenging and attacking the system for starving people. They're attacking the people who are being starved. Rick Baker is prepared to run for office again. I just saw in the newspaper today. He was on this Sean Hannity, whatever his name is, show. Yeah, he's been held up. Baker is this great mayor who ought to try to be mayor again. For what he did around the homeless question. The homeless question, this is what they say about Baker. Wow. And what I'm saying is that this system is corrupted. It will corrupt you. And it will try to corrupt Akilé. Be safe. Say the right things. Yes. You can make it, but you just got to say the right things and what have you. Yeah. And that comes at the expense of our people. So this is a campaign that has to mobilize the people. That's what our responsibility is. We got a lot of work to do. I really hope that the people who are in this meeting and people who are supporters of this campaign are prepared to do the work, because they ain't going to give it to us. We're going to fight tooth and nail, and we're going up against the whole damn system. Yes. Yeah. But we can win. Yes. We have developed an incredible campaign machine. There's no doubt who had the best machine out there. There is no doubt about that. We had the best candidates. We were the best organized. Yep. We beat them at their own game. We were on their turf. Now we're bringing them to our turf. Yes. And our turf is these streets out here where the masses of people are suffering and we will beat them, we will beat them, we will crush them, we will crush them, we will deal with the students who are out there who need to be in motion. They know they want to, and they want to be in motion, but they've been trapped with this system. All the people who slept this election the first time out, we will let them know that this election is happening. The people who we missed because there was a stealth election, they had already voted for the status quo. We will let them know that the status quo must go, and the best way to make that happen is voting for Akilé in District 7. Uhuru.